Welcome to this day's episode of The Capitalist Investor. You have Diamond Hands D, you've got me, Cool Hand Luke, and Tony the Tiger still off somewhere jet setting. Even that's what he says about me, but really I think he's the jet setter.
On assignment, I think
On
is what we said.
assignment. Yeah. Well, we have, on our last episode, we talked a little bit about the political nature of things. So we're going to focus more on kind of the technology and stock economy. We talked a little bit about technology on the last one, but we're digging deeper on the whole Crowdstrike episode that happened this past Friday when basically the whole world was shut down because 8.5 million computers or Windows computers were like shut down, blue screen of death. I remember getting the blue screen of death all the time back in the day. That was never fun. But basically all these businesses were shut down. I was out Friday with some buddies I haven't seen in a while, and they all were saying they did nothing for that last Friday because they couldn't work. They couldn't log into softwares. They couldn't log into their computers in a lot of ways. They couldn't, their phone systems weren't operating. So some of those guys worked in the mortgage industry, some in accounting, obviously some wealth management. I know I still worked Friday, and actually last Friday was probably one of the most productive days I've had. I remember just thinking that. I'm like, wow, no one else worked, but I think I had the most productive day I've had in a very long time just with meetings and everything else. So, it's funny, though, how the whole world can be shut down because of one bad software push from one company disrupting the whole entire economy, costing the economy billions and billions of dollars of economic output.
Yep. The airlines, I think, are still recovering. Just nightmare scenarios. As my understanding, people were getting checked in manually, one at a time.
Some good old school stuff.
Yeah, that was kind of that was from just local reporting that I happened to catch. Even when I went to the gym on Saturday morning,
I did too for the first time in a while.
Hey, good job.
Yeah, getting back into it.
So the on the TV monitors, I assume those are the ones. Some of them, the TVs were working, but the ones connected to the computer had the blue screen of death on there. When we dropped our kids off at the check-in for the care or whatever, they did that manually too. So yeah, it's always when everyone is hit with the world news and everyone sees it in their day-to-day lives, that makes everything 100 times worse.
Yeah.
We could pull the tinfoil out on this one pretty quickly.
Go ahead.
It's my understanding from reading the internets that the Crowdstrike is their malware software or whatever is somehow connected to all the Dominion voting machines.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah. So again, that's just me reading the internets, but
I'm sure it is because I don't know. I'm just assuming because look how connected everything was.
Yeah.
When CrowdStrike is running cybersecurity and all the antivirus, whatever it is, software for the majority of the world, I'm sure that it's probably uncommon for a company to not use something within CrowdStrike once they're a certain size.
Yep.
The interesting thing is, and I talked about this on Cavuto on Friday, actually. I said there's going to be one of the outcomes is obviously some political call for regulation or some political call for a breakup of how involved CrowdStrike is for, the world in a lot of ways, because you can't just have one company, a monopoly almost, like to where they are, can and shut down the whole world if they do something wrong. So, you're already seeing calls for the CEO to go talk in front of Congress. And the problem with this is, this is another example. Every time something like this happens, and this was one of the biggest when it comes to tech disruption of the entire economy and world, you see the government sweep in here and try to be the saving grace, the savior for the people, right? They have to be the perception of the government in the Congress, whatever it be, has to be they're trying to be the world's savior and the solution. Usually when they get more involved, they aren't the savior, they're actually the destroyer of, the average person, middle class, whatever you want to call it. So, you might see something that comes out of this, like more of government jobs, more government regulation, another division of the government, like the cyber force. Like you saw the Space Force created in 2019, like as an actual military component. Like I think the cyber force probably is right around the corner. Like the new warfare is cybersecurity, and like this wasn't even a hack. This was a software push. What happens when someone actually gets hacked, into a network and is able to manipulate and shut down the network? Another country does that. Like this is where from a defense standpoint, we probably do need some sort of cyber force. I think there's divisions within the military like that, but there probably will be a call for that over the next couple of years. And I think this will leave companies susceptible too. As companies realize how connected they are to CrowdStrike, they're probably going to diversify away, which is expensive. Diversify away from CrowdStrike into other software providers, and that leaves them susceptible for a little bit. Software transitions are messy.
Yep.
It takes a long time. Who knows what balls are dropped. So I think there's going to be an increase of cyber attacks over the next couple of months as companies diversify away.
Yep. Yeah, that is a very interesting point.
Funny it's how it's right around the election too.
Yeah, that is a strange coincidence for sure. All right. Well, also, Tesla always in the, upper half of the news. That's for sure. It certainly gets people talking. It seems these days. We talked about divisiveness a few episodes ago, and it almost seems like the media is happy to report when Tesla has bad earnings. The Associated Press's tweets are something else. But anyway, basically a pretty big miss across the board and pretty much every section for Tesla. Earnings, profitability. But what I think had everyone excited, at least after hours, and I think it's been selling off since then, is basically the AI component of the things that they're working on, that they're planning to do. Is it the robo-taxi? Is that so? Which is like stuff of science fiction movies when I was little, but I think it's on the way. I really do.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's safer. I mean, technology leaves us susceptible in some ways, like we were just talking about, but it also can make the world a much safer place. I mean, if every car was attached to some, technology, AI, whatever it be, of self-driving where they talk to each other, I'm sure that would reduce the wrecks out there. And then you have the one wreck that will happen, and then everyone will blame technology and say it's the worst thing in the entire world. When in reality, the 85-year-old grandma that can't see, that shouldn't be driving, that causes a wreck, like no one will complain about that. You know what I mean? So like it's just very interesting how that kind of happens.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, you got on the freeway every morning, and everyone's texting. No one's paying attention.
I mean, I can barely see, my age. I won't be driving here in 30 years when I can't see for, my eyesight goes completely out. But I'm just saying, like, by that time, hopefully robo-taxis are around.
Yeah, that's we talked a little again a couple episodes about basically not being able to have conversations. Like that's a conversation that needs to be had, because if a Tesla gets into one accident, the media is going to run with the story that these cars aren't safe. Yeah. But when in reality, they are much safer. Yeah, exponentially safer.
Now I will go back to the Julia Roberts movie on Netflix, where it's talking about basically how the kind of the Civil War kind of thing, like that. There's a new movie, basically talks about how once our communications are shut off, other countries' cyber attacks, like we are basically turning on ourselves in a lot of way. But one of the things in the movie is there's this like collection of Teslas, like on a street, and they keep on driving right back into each other. So basically, part of the cyber attack was a hack into the software of the cars, and that's always been a concern. Is what if you're driving down the street and someone hacks into you and just steers you right off and then wrecks your car? Like that's an obvious concern as well. But this again, it's like, how susceptible are we? How much are we willing to give up in regards to loss of control of
Right.
something like that happening. But what's the reward component of that as well? And that comes just back to really U.S. staying on top of its game as the innovator. If we ever lose our status as the innovating country, and you have China then becoming better with AI technology and their software's better, then we probably can't use technology as much as reliable. So the new currency is technology. It's no longer true dollars in whatever sense. Technology is the true currency of the world now.
Absolutely, 100%. And yeah, it does. It's going to lead us into different times. That's for sure. What do you think about Tesla for the rest of the year?
I've never been able. I mean, I've said before. I mean, I'm kind of with the firm on this, and Mark has said this for a very long time. Like, from a stock standpoint, I can never follow the cult from a valuation standpoint, but from a innovation standpoint, from an Elon Musk standpoint, like I believe in Tesla, and I hope they keep on rocking. I hope they keep on going. Tesla's and Elon Musk has done the most for probably mankind in the majority of ways outside of many other people. So I think in the end, I think the recession that's probably somewhat around the corner, or some deeper downturn in some sort of way, is going to probably hit Tesla harder than other companies just because of how they're built.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, we shall see, but it's always been my stance that Tesla is so far ahead technologically, whether it's with AI or batteries is really their advantage right now. You see the new electric cars come out; they're all crap.
Yeah.
I've seen a few of those. Rivian, is that what it's?
Yeah.
I've seen a few of those on the road. They do look nice. I see nothing but horror stories about them on the internet. So yeah, it's I think Tesla has a major advantage in what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Obviously the next step is to take the next step with that technology, and once they can monetize that, if they can monetize that, the valuation becomes less of an issue, I think.
Well, one thing I didn't talk about on the last political kind of podcast that I think ties into kind of the whole inflation, recession, technology talk is, one thing I kind of started bringing in the conversation is I do think Trump will be more inflationary actually for the economy than the future Biden administration or Kamala Harris Democratic Party administration, whatever you want to call it, whoever it ends up being. Because, whether it's tariffs or whether it's a pro-growth economy, that should be a little bit more inflationary, especially Republicans and Democrats spend really just about the same amount of money.
Right.
They really never cut back. So if you have the same culprits to the inputs, like Democrats, Republicans assume they spend similar amounts of money, then you also add a pro-growth kind of tilt to the economy, then that should be inflationary. So, but I think that's actually a good thing. And I'll say it's good inflation, because I think that kind of right around the time of next year and 2 years from now, when there is more of a slower growth downturn, as rate hikes eventually do hit, unemployment maybe starts to rise. And whenever there's a downturn, I think that pro-growth tilt of an inflationary economy will actually bail us out in some sort of ways of that downturn. So I think it's kind of interesting how that's going to play out. But that could be good, for like the Teslas of the world and things like that. That better for corporate tax standpoint, better from hiring talent standpoint, poaching from other people once we're coming out of the downturn. So again, it'll be very interesting to see what happens. But I think there is such a thing as good inflation.
Yep, no, that makes perfect sense. Much better than the inflation that we get just by the government spending us into oblivion, for sure. So thanks for listening this week. If you guys have any questions, comments, concern, shoot us an email at info@swpconnect.com, and we'll talk to you next time.